just mentioned. And I actually took an elective course called Mind, Body, Spirit. And it was all about meditation. But I'm here in Canada, and a lot of our courses, unless it was a religion course, is very secularized. So they stripped away all of the religion, but they talked about meditation. And it was still interesting because as a science student, I love to hear about how it impacts your brain and your body and your mind. So I was definitely very intrigued. And then one component of this course involved actually practicing meditation. It wasn't mandatory, but it was highly, highly recommended. And I recall when I was a student at that time, I was very interested in the science part. But when it came to applying the meditation and actually meditating, part of me was just like, I don't know if I need to do this because I'm Muslim and I have our salah, we have our dhikr, we have our own form of meditation. So I kind of continued the course thinking that and telling myself that until maybe closer to the end of the course, I really just kind of had to sit with myself and think like, am I am I not meditating because I just don't want to add a good behavior into my schedule? And it's just as many of us procrastinate and like the idea of it, but forget to like bring it into our world. Or do I truly believe that what we're doing in Islam is exactly the same and it's not needed? So I don't need to do this added breathing technique, for instance, which many people refer to meditation as. So as a science student, I actually took what was going on in my brain and what I was thinking about, and I applied it to a research study. So what I ended up doing was applying for my master's of science in research and studied exactly that. I wanted to know, is it identical to what we do in Islam, or is there a difference? So what we did is we actually got a lot of people to come in, and this was done at a university. So we got many Muslim students to come in. We got them attached to heart monitors, and we wanted to see how they react to stress. And half of them would meditate, the breathing techniques, nothing to do with religion, very secularized and stripped away. And then half of them would listen to the Quran, specifically with Surah Rahman, because it has a lot of healing benefits, as does many other surahs in the Quran. And then we wanted to see, okay, well, who's reacting to stress more effectively and more efficiently? And lo and behold, it was actually the group that was listening to the guided meditation. And my Muslim heart kind of broke, and I'm like, this is the Quran. How this is going to outshine everything. But then when I really dove a little deeper into the research and I was speaking to our participants and getting a chance to understand their experience, I quickly found out what it was. It was that the students were saying, Iqra, I was so distracted. I was like, thinking about the stressor that you gave me, and then I was thinking about school and my exams. And then, because I instructed them that your mind will wander, but when it wanders, just accept it in a non-judgmental way, and then bring your attention back to the Quran that you're listening to. And he said, when I was finally able to let go of those stressors, then I felt calm and relaxed, and I was really enjoying the recitation. And that made absolute sense to me. Like, how many times are we praying our salah and our mind goes to, I have a meeting or I have an exam or I have, to cook or clean, I need to do this errand. Our brain goes everywhere. And when we learn how to focus more during our salah, that's when we can really reap the benefit and actually enjoy and gain that khushu in our salah. So that all my research and everything that I was doing workshops and speaking to people about the results led me to Noor meditation, which is the mindfulness app dedicated for Muslims. So you may have heard about other meditations apps like Headspace and Calm, and they're great, but they strip away a lot of, well, all of the religion to cater to the masses. And what my goal with newer meditation is let's bring back the religion. Let's bring back all of those elements that are true to our identity. So things about from the Quran, from the Sunnah, there's dhikr, there's all of these different things that are available in the app. And we don't want to strip any of it away. We want to bring it back because if you look at the root of Islam, and I would love to hear more about it from Brother Bilal here, but that for afterwards. But when you really look back to the roots, meditation is there. Our Prophet ﷺ would be meditating in the cave, and having that ability to focus on something that you're doing is so important. Of course, within our salah, but that skill gets translated to our day-to-day lives. So if you're not able to focus in your salah, and then now you're, let's say, you quickly did it, you quickly rushed, checked it off of your list, and then now you're going to, let's say, a project that you're working on or a meeting you're going into. If your mind was wandering so much in your salah, chances are it's going to wander a lot when you're doing all of these other activities. So the goal of neuromeditation is we want to help you gain that skill of being able to focus in a very non-judgmental way. So it's okay. Your brain will distract you, your mind will wander, and that just means you're human. But we're teaching you the techniques of how to bring it back and how to gain that focus, inshallah, so that in your salah you can focus, and then in your day-to-day life you can focus as well. So our goal was always to cater to our busy Muslims that are on the go. Many people say, well, I don't have time. It sounds like a great idea. I just don't have the time. We created the sessions so they're really short and sweet. All our new sessions are going to be 5 minutes or less. All our mini courses are really small as well and short, so that you could do one thing, just even one session per day, and that can go a very long way. Not only neurologically are there going to be benefits, not only psychologically are there going to be benefits, but spiritually as well. So inshallah, that's what we're hoping to do, is get everyone to join our journey and help ourselves really get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this practice of using our breath, using our dhikr, and using different techniques. We've released some new features. So there's one that many people who were telling us about. They really liked our dhikr meditation, where we helped guide people through doing whatever dhikr phrase that they enjoy the most. So one example was just starting in the name of Allah. So really saying Bismillah, but not just saying it so that I need to say it once and twice and maybe 33 times or 99 times and just rush through it like we do maybe even our salah, unfortunately. But really taking the opportunity, when we say Bismillah, we're breathing in the word Bismillah, and then we're sending it to our heart. And we guide people through these sessions so that they have the ability to slow down, even if it's just taking 5 minutes. But then the next time they say that word, they can actually engage with it and they can actually feel it. And then what we did with the technology, so we have a feature where while you are doing the meditation and listening to us guide you through these sessions, you have the ability to click on the icon and draw that letter, write those letters on the screen and spell out the word Bismillah as you are doing the guided session with us, so that when you're using your fingers, it's stimulating your brain, and also it forces you to slow down and really engage with what does that mean, right? Regardless if you understand Arabic or not, just knowing, okay, the phrase means, I'm going to start in the name of Allah. What does that mean when we say that, right? We can say it quickly off of our tongue, and we can say it is one thing, but to actually practice it and actually be with that word takes it and yourself to a whole new level. We've also, by speaking to people, have seen that, we could have a huge library of content, but in the moment, if you're dealing with stress or anxiety and you want a session to help calm you down, or angry in that moment and you need something to turn back to that's rooted in Islam, what we did is we created an AI feature that has artificial intelligence, where you can go to the AI, you can ask questions about Islam and meditation, and you can also tell it how you are feeling. So you can just say, I am stressed, and it will give you a response with Islamic context and background, and then it'll guide you to the perfect session for you. So in that moment, you may not know what the right session is, but let the AI do the hard work. It will find you that session, inshallah, and guide you to the right session. So I'm just going to turn it back to you, Brother Bilal, if you have any questions or if there's anything that you would like to say. I would actually love to hear from your side of how it's rooted in Islam and how important meditation is.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair for the for the time, especially when someone has kids, young kids, like a mindful prayer. When you have, for example, a child, especially if it's a 2-year-old. I say that because you have the infamous terrible twos, and I feel like this is coming from me. This isn't from any, scripture or hadith literature or anything like that. Just from um, personal experience, I feel like one prayer when you have, especially a young kid, is equal to like 1,000 prayers without, just because it's for those who don't have kids may not get it. Like, what do you mean if you're just gonna go pray for 5 minutes and come back? it's not that simple. It's never that simple. So God bless all the parents out there, especially those who have younger kids. I think what you mentioned, there are several things that you mentioned that there are little light bulbs going off in my mind. One of them is you mentioned using your finger to write out the phrase, and that actually ties in perfectly with different learning styles, right? Some people are more visual learners. Some people learn better through listening, right? So auditory learners. And then you have kinesthetic learners who they learn by feeling and touching something. So the act of writing with their finger is definitely going to be much more appreciated by those who have that inclination. So the um, the the way that the app is dynamic and it continues to, mashallah, evolve and grow and expand is really awesome to see. You also mentioned something extremely important, which is it's not just about saying Bismillah, it's not just about saying any dhikr, any name of Allah, any ayah of Quran, but to try to be present mindfully when you're saying it. This, like, if someone is praying, prayer doesn't have to be, it's actually not intended to be very long. If someone chooses to make it long and they're praying on their own and they're not leading anyone in prayer and it's like in the middle of the night, God bless them, that's good, but that's not the default setting. The default setting is, okay, what is the minimum requirement for any of the 5 daily prayers to be valid? It doesn't end up being that long. So if someone says Surah Fatiha, maybe they say Surah Kawthar, Surah Ikhlas, a short surah. It's not so much about the specific length of the prayer, but if someone tries to be mindful, and if it's a journey, but if someone takes the time little by little to learn the meaning of what they're saying in prayer, that's going to add a whole nother level of connection, of mindfulness, of presence. Um, and that's when they're really going to benefit from the prayer. It's not just about physically going through the motions of prayer. It's actually more important, arguably, for you to be present psychologically and spiritually in connection with those motions. No one is saying that those motions aren't important. The Prophet taught us these things, and there's wisdom in everything that he taught, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Um, but the X factor is the presence of mind, right? And you mentioned something so real. Not if, but when your mind drifts away, then you bring it back. And then when it drifts away in a different direction, bring it back. That's the human experience, right? We're trying to go down the straight path. We're trying to go down Sirat al-Mustaqim, and we lose our focus and we waver, and then we come back, hopefully. And then we waver. We may go very far up off the trodden path. And this is the beauty of Tawbah. Then just by turning where you're facing, Allah loves that. So if someone goes, for example, 1,000 miles off track to the side, what Allah loves is when that person, they just turn around. They turn around to face the correct direction again. Allah loves that process. That's what tawbah is. And then Allah will expedite the process of getting that person basically like VIP treatment to to fast track them getting back to the actual path itself. But just that first step of turning, that requires mindfulness, that requires presence of mind, that requires reflection. You mentioned when the Prophet ﷺ was in the cave of Hira, in the mountain of Noor. I mean, hashtag Noor meditation. Um, he went, this was pre-revelation. That was when revelation first came to him. But I think there's a lot of benefit we can take from that. He sought peace in nature. And that was pre skyscrapers and petroleum and smog and what have you. But he felt more of a sense of peace. It's actually really interesting being further from people and closer to nature. he found peace in that. He found solace in that when you also reflect on the example of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. He's traveling with his family back to Egypt. The story is mentioned in a couple different places in the Quran. And you find nature woven into that experience. He sees a flame. So this famous story of the burning bush, right? He sees this flame also on a mountain. So he goes there and it's amazing. His initial intention was to simply provide as best he could for his family. Subhanallah. Like that was the purity and simplicity in his intention. And he's quoted in the Quran, Inni anastu nara. I see some fire over there. Let me go see if I can get some fire so we can, it was cold at night, so we can have our own fire. And then maybe I can also get some help with directions from whoever's there. And he came back with much more than that, subhanallah. But the initial intention was, I am going there to seek some kind of benefit, warmth when it's cold, and guidance when you're lost. And he also saw that light when he was in darkness at night. And you find all of this is captured in these expressions in nature. Subhanallah, subhanallah. So I appreciate the different points that you made, also the reflections that you shared. What one thing that I do want to ask is, have this type of thing often ebbs and flows, and it's a very living connection sort of thing. So it's not a static thing. But at this point in time, is there a specific dhikr that you find yourself leaning towards more? Maybe a specific surah, maybe a specific story from the life of the Prophet, anything along these lines that you find yourself reflecting on a little extra these days?
Jazakallah for that question. I think Surah Rahman is just dear to my heart. It was because of the healing benefits that I've heard, especially with the science side that I have, and hearing that people going through depression and anxiety, and people using it in hospitals to play it out loud, and just the healing benefit of listening to it. How much has it changed internally, physically, mentally, spiritually, in multiple different ways, and then really breaking down the surah, just how much repetition there is,
Mhm.
and like thinking about, okay, there's a rhythm to it, right? And there, unless created it that way for a purpose, right?
Mhm.
One could be, okay, I'm going to say this one ayah over and over in case you didn't hear it. I want
Mhm.
to say it again and again so it shows the emphasis of it. But when you're listening to it, even if you don't understand Arabic, it's just there's a rhythm. There's something about it that's getting your attention, that's making your insides feel good as well. So I always find myself, if I'm ever feeling low or my mood is, just kind of off, just listening to it on its own is,
Mhm.
I find it very helpful. And then taking it one step further is like, what is it saying? And even if, again, if you don't understand Arabic, just knowing that one verse gets repeated over and over, and maybe if you want to elaborate on that meaning, I just find it very beautiful. Subhanallah.
Yeah, you actually mentioned an interesting point regarding repetition, because in the entire, not just in this surah, but when you look at the entire Quran from cover to cover, you have over 6,000 verses, over 6,000 ayat. And the one ayah that's repeated the most in the entire Quran is that ayah that's repeated in Surah Al-Rahman 31 times. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ? And which of the favors will either of you, humankind or jinn, deny? What's interesting is at the very beginning of the surah, Allah mentions his name Ar-Rahman. That ayah itself is very unique. It's the only ayah in the entire Quran that the entire ayah is a name of Allah. You don't have an entire ayah, Al-Kareem, Al-Aziz, Al-Rahim, Al-Kareem, the most generous, the most noble, Al-Rahim, the most kind, you could say. Al-Jabbar, which is a very interesting name because it has to do with Allah's power and his authority. He's overpowering, but that name also has to do with healing the pain in someone's heart or healing someone's financial poverty. So it's very interesting because when that name is connected with Allah, it's of course understood in a good way. But then when that name is mentioned in the Quran in connection with different tyrants, um, it's used in a very negative way. That they had power, but they abused their power, and the part of that attribute that they embodied was the powerful aspect of it. And instead of also being mindful of healing hearts, they did the exact opposite. They would crush people's hearts and break them and destroy them. And like Fir'aun, the term is used in connection with Pharaoh himself. But going back to that first ayah, Ar-Rahman, so from the very beginning of the surah, you find something very unique. And then in connection with repetition, so Allah says Ar-Rahman, which has to do with Allah's mercy to all of his creation, especially in this life, especially in the dunya. And Ar-Rahim especially has to do with Allah's mercy in the next life, especially for those who tried to live good, wholesome, decent lives as believers. There's a special mercy that's reserved for them. We hope and we pray that we're all from among that category of people who receive that. Um, Ar-Rahman, though, Allah mentions that specific name, and then immediately after that, Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran. Ar-Rahman, the one who is abundantly merciful to all of his creation, especially in this life, is the one who taught the Quran. And Allama al-Quran, it doesn't just mean that Allah taught it, but it implies repetition. And then in this surah, it's like Allah's preparing you for repetition.
For repetition, yes.
Parents with children, especially young children, teachers with students, especially young students. 90% of what you're doing is repetition.
Absolutely. You know the
And
audience.
yeah, yeah, subhanAllah. So within, it's just reflection on the different blessings that that Allah has given us. And I find it to be one of the, I mean, you can comment on this further given your expertise. One of the most simple yet impactful exercises that I've benefited from and continue to benefit from is gratitude journaling.
Gratitude. Absolutely.
If I just jot down the first, I know the number may vary, but if I just take the number 10, if I jot down the first 10 blessings that I can think of, it immediately fills up. And if you do that, especially whether it's daily or weekly, whatever it is, just you start to notice that, wait, there are these immediate blessings that I can think of that are actually really amazing. Like if they jot down, they're thankful for their eyes. How much goes into human eyes? How has Allah designed them? How
And
can
I've
I?
studied that. It's a lot. It's a lot.
You said that you study that?
I've studied that. Well, in neuroscience, they teach you that. And it's overwhelming because there's just so much to learn, right? Of how much goes on just about like the light needs to be perfect. And then our eyes need to be accepting what we're seeing in front of us. And it's all perception, but it needs to hit the right area and then it needs to go to the brain. If any of those parts of it doesn't work, we're not seeing.
Mhm. SubhanAllah.
We take it for granted every day.
Yeah. And then you connect that with those who are more visual learners,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of light for them, the importance of uh what they see and what's the setting. Um if they learn better, from say pictures, maybe videos, visuals, uh your eyes are needed to, as really priceless tools basically to be able to learn. So it also can reflect how important learning is.
Mm-hmm.
Learning is so important. Allah gave us these amazing tools I almost want to use the term devices of our eyes. As subhanallah, it's like when you just think about, and Allah gave us these things for alhamdulillah, if we have the ability to see, we thank Allah. And for whoever is tested without being able to see, then God bless them for their patience. The Prophet described that type of patience for whoever loses their vision after having it. They're, if they're patient with it, then they're basically guaranteed paradise because it's such a big challenge. uh,
Absolutely.
then you have auditory learners.
Mhm.
What goes into the human ear? What's unique about the human ear? Do you have any thoughts on that? Any words to share?
Absolutely. It marvels me. I feel like I wish I can go back into my undergrad years and restudy all the science because I
Mhm.
think I would have a stronger appreciation for everything. Because at that time it was study the eyes, there's cones, there's rods, there's the stimulus, and I'm like, all right, study, got it. I have to memorize it. But
Mhm.
then when I reflect back at it, I'm like, Subhanallah, like Allah's really got every single detail perfectly lined up and perfectly designed, right?
Mhm.
And it just makes me marvel of like, how can people not believe? Because there's just there needs to be a designer, right? There needs to be something
Yeah.
there that designed it to work in a way that also it's not just if you're we're talking about a lot of the times we talk about senses individually, right? Because we're talking about visual learners, so we talk about our eyes, auditory learners, we're talking about our ears, but there's a whole other connection happening with all of our senses
Mhm.
coming together, right? And this may sound like a little bit of a stretch and we're going quite off, but there's something called synesthesia. And I did my undergraduate thesis on this. And I'm talking about this because about senses and it's come up. And what happens is mostly in our brain, we process senses differently in different regions of our brain. So if let's say we see a number, right? Like one, two, A, B, we see that, or we see in front of us, or we hear it. One part of our brain is processing that. And then if we see color, another part of our brain is processing that. Allah has designed it in ways that, you have resources, you have different areas of your brain for processing. There are some people in this world where there's a potential a cross connection between these areas so that whenever they think of or they see or they think of the letter A, they also think of B. Sorry, they always also think of the color blue. Normal, like the average person, this cross connection doesn't happen, but for them, there is this extra linkage. So it's very interesting to know, and the theory is that most people the connection's not there because it's not needed. Right? We have limited resources in our brain, and when you're a baby, you have all of these extra connections, and that's why they say when your baby's young, teach them a language, teach them a skill, teach them that because there's extra wiring across the brain, and they are able to absorb and learn and learn. But then Allah in his infinite wisdom is saying, no one can live like that forever because you have limited resources and you need to allocate it appropriately. So there's a process called pruning. It's like it's cutting the extra connections that are not needed. And subhanAllah, people with synesthesia, the theory is that there may be some connection that's still there, where like different areas of the brain, there's cross connection. But this is all to say, like, just subhanAllah, I just get marveled. And I feel like if I go back and learn science with this kind of a mindset of like, as Allah is the designer, that like, I'm going into the courses, like, I want to learn how Allah is a designer and teach me the science, but I'm going to connect it back to Allah.
Mhm.
I think like if anyone did that and you maybe we need a course like that, I feel like more people would revert to Islam and the people who are already Muslim will really truly be very stronger believers because the proof is right in front of us. Once you
Mhm.
start learning our own, just our human body, how intricate it is and the details and the neurons and the connections, you can't just stop. Like I can't take it all in without stopping and pausing and saying like, Subhanallah. And through the app, I actually want to take people through different elements and keep it very simple. But like you mentioned, like these gifts and the things that we're grateful for, but really talk about it. And like, okay, today you have 5 minutes of your time. Let's talk about the eye and just be marveled by the eye. And that's it. That's all you need to know for today is the eye. But just if that allows you to feel more connected to Allah, so that when you go to your salah, you feel like, okay, I'm talking to the designer of the eye, right? I'm talking to the person I'm talking to the creator of who's created people that can see through this eye. And then that connects to the ear. And then when we're seeing and we're hearing, it needs to come that there needs to be some kind of connection so that we know where is that sound coming from. It's the same person. there's just so much going on behind the scenes, subhanallah. And when you have, there's maybe doctors or there's people that are studying different illnesses and conditions. It could be one tiny error that could go wrong. Maybe it's imbalance of chemicals, but things can completely change, and that person's experience can completely change. So that makes me think of mizan and how balance is so important. And
Mhm.
Allah showing that within even our own body. If our hormones got out of balance, different symptoms manifest. And what are these drugs that we're getting, these pharmaceutical companies? They're all trying to get that balance back. It's
Mhm.
whatever can get that balance back better. But
Mhm.
Allah is saying how important balance is. So I feel like just gratitude, balance, all of these lessons that come out in the Quran so many times, if we really just pay attention to our bodies,
Mhm.
we're going to see that manifest and all of the importance behind all of that.
Mhm. Yeah. And what's interesting is the same human body, the same human eye, human ear that someone with faith looks at, that can be an incredible experience that brings them closer to Allah. But if someone can be looking at the same thing, but without, let's say they've blocked out this idea of Iman and they've shut that door, then it's like they're missing out on this whole extra layer, extra level of the experience of appreciating, of wow, like Allah gave me these eyes, alhamdulillah, that I've been blessed with, these ears that I've been blessed with. And I didn't even ask Allah for them. I didn't negotiate with Allah before I was born. Okay, can I get, two eyes? And this is the negotiation process. And okay, like Allah just gave out of his generosity. And subhanallah, Allah gives and Allah gives and Allah gives. And what Allah emphasizes in Surah Al-Rahman, look at what I've given, look at what I've provided, look at what I will give for those in paradise and Jannah, um, and reflect on gratitude. So that there's a consistent theme in this surah of mercy, Surah Al-Rahman. Gratitude is emphasized. So mercy and gratitude, they go hand in hand. So if a person expresses more gratitude, then Allah will increase them in different blessings, and Allah will increase his favor upon them. He'll increase the mercy that he shows them. So contained within gratitude is mercy. And it's fascinating. I mean, you would be more uh, intricately familiar with these types of exercises, but my understanding is that there have been studies done for people. I know when it comes to depression, you have a spectrum, you have different degrees and different levels and all that. So I don't know the exact details, but my understanding is there was a study done, I think at UC Davis, where they took people who were suffering from depression and they wrote, I think, 10 things they were grateful for. I forget the number. I think it was every day. And then after 6 months, they all had this um, significant improvement in their situation. Just that exercise. And mind you, this is, like you said earlier, this was a secular study. This was generic human being writing down things you're grateful for. The time doesn't take very long. It may take we'll just say, it takes a minute, 2 minutes maximum, probably, if someone was going to do that. Um, so 1 or 2 minutes a day, and then it ends up positively impacting what remains in the 24 hours. And that momentum builds up over time. I think the consistency has to be like uh, given a lot of value in it. Like if a person does, something like that once in a while, there's good in that. But really, the momentum factor is it'll exponentially increase the impact of it. Just gratitude. And
Absolutely.
like they're just subhanallah. There's uh, a lot of I think benefit, a lot of things that can come from just basic gratitude. Do you have any thoughts on gratitude that you want to share? Any gems that you've learned or anything to you? You probably think like, oh, this is such an obvious thing. I've known it for
No,
a
no,
couple.
not at all. Not at all.
For the
I'm
rest,
experiencing it differently. I can say that. Like as a science student studying it, it was just to honestly gather the information and get a test done and all that. I think now I'm at a part of my life where I'm experiencing it. And there's one thing to know, but there's another thing to like live it. And I think so. Knowledge is so important, in Islam, and knowledge is so important as well. But the gratitude, I could have said when I was younger and in undergrad, yes, studies are showing exactly what you're saying. I've read so many of those studies. Gratitude's great, but then when you actually experience it, it feels like a whole new thing. And neurologically, it's actually changing how your brain is wired. So there's a
subhanAllah.
law. It's called Hebb's law. So whatever fires together. So in our brain, right? Any like right now, I'm looking at the screen. So the visual system is firing, right? I'm listening to you. So auditory system is firing. All of these things are firing, right? What it's saying is when they fire together, like, and then you said consistency as well. It's beautiful how it's all going to connect together. When they fire together and your neurons are firing together, the more they fire, because you mentioned consistency. So there's one thing to do it and it's great, right? We practice gratitude, alhamdulillah. But once you're practicing it over and over and over, your brain is very smart. It's saying, oh, this person keeps practicing gratitude over and over. And I'm getting these areas of the brain are firing again and again and again. So your brain is saying, well, they must be connected.
Mm,
So, you know what? Why don't I make a connection between those things that are firing? And
mm,
right now, what you just did by practicing gratitude over and over and over. And what does Allah and our Prophet ﷺ teaches us? Consistency is key, right? Regardless if it's just small, consistency is key. So what we're doing neurologically, Allah is like rewarding us, saying, I'm telling you consistency is key. When you do it, I'm going to change your brain. And then you're
mm,
being grateful, and I'm going to make you more grateful because now your brain is just making it easy, right? So
mm,
there's some people you may see in life, you're like, how are they just so positive? Like, they get in a car crash. This is like the worst thing. This is the time, the anger and all that can come out, the rage. But they're like, subhanallah that I'm alive. Subhanallah that I have insurance and my car is total. But like they're always thinking about the positive. It's because they practice this gratitude throughout their life. It's not just a one-time instance comes up and they know how to be grateful. It's because they practice it in so many things in their life that their brain, because it was firing together, it got wired together. So that
mm,
when life throws you a situation, what's the first thing that's going to come up to your brain is gratitude, because that's what you practice. And it
mm,
becomes, there's a part of your brain now, there's the brain stem area that it shows and it comes up in automation when things become automatic. So the more that you're practicing consistently, again, it could be 5 things, maybe 10 things, but you're doing it consistently. Now you're faced with life's trials because they will come. You're better equipped because now your brain's like, I'm used to just responding with gratitude because that's what's wired. That's how I'm wired,
okay.
literally. SubhanAllah.
And then you tie that in, especially in when you look at the life of the Prophet والسلام, and the many severe challenges that he faced, went through, overcame, dealt with. I mean, the fact that he buried 6 out of 7 children, subhanallah. If it was just that one challenge in life, that's to bury one child is a major, major challenge. Two, three, four, five, 6 out of 7, subhanallah. Just that alone is a massive, mountain to climb, basically. And then you also look at all these other things that he dealt with and that he went through, and being slandered. He had a perfect reputation pre-revelation. His people gave him the nickname As-Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful, the trustworthy. They gave him that nickname. They awarded him with that badge. We we trust you with anything and everything. And then all of a sudden, when he's given this message and this mantle of prophethood, and he's given revelation, and then you have the worst slander being thrown his way. I mean, for anyone to be accused of being a liar is a terrible thing. When you're the most sincere, trustworthy person, and you've never ever lied to anyone, and you're called a liar, like, it's extra offensive, and even that doesn't do it justice. Like, the burn and the sting, it's going to be a major, major challenge. And so you look at all of these things, yet the Prophet would remain consistent in his prayer. And at the beginning of our prayer, we thank Allah. Subhanallah.
Yeah.
So whether there was even through the not just the valleys, but even the peaks, when you have this lopsided victory in Badr, he's still praying, he's still remaining consistent in his prayer. So before that, in his prayers before that, he begins his prayer with thanking Allah, with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And then after that success, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So through both the good and the bad, there's this consistency of gratitude. And so he remained centered. He remained in the middle. So regardless of whatever good happens, and there were many things or the challenges, and there were definitely many things there as well, he remained centered. And it's just, it's really incredible when this whole discussion is woven into the instance towards the end of his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he's you know continuously from the beginning of his mission until the end of his life, he remained consistent in praying at night. And his wife Sayyidah Aisha asks him, like, you're still pushing yourself so hard, basically as if you're still in that same situation. Like someone may go through a difficult trial. The it could be literal, it could be figurative. When the boat rocks, everyone calls out to God. You don't have an what's the saying? You don't they're like,
Turbulent plane. There's no atheist on a turbulent plane.
yeah, yeah. When uh sorry, my mind won't blink. I don't know. Subhanallah. The dad brain is taken over.
No worries.
Uh oh, and so when Sayyidah Aisha asks him,
Mhm.
why, so like when the boat rocks, when the plane shakes, there's a heightened level of sincerity and attention and focus and prioritization, like you're really locked in. So even after basically the plane figuratively was no longer shaking and the boat was no longer rocking, yet the Prophet is remaining at this really high level, pushing himself to pray for extended periods of time on a nightly basis. And Sayyidah Aisha, she was amazed by this. Like, you're still pushing yourself this much? And the Prophet mentioned gratitude. Should I not be a grateful servant? SubhanAllah. It just, his embodiment of of the concept of gratitude is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's really incredible when you look at how he responded to positivity. I mean, how in the world was he always smiling? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Not just in general, but someone who's the head of state, someone who has this huge responsibility on his shoulders, someone who has no shortage of enemies. There were what, 13 assassination attempts on his life during his lifetime, all of these things, yet he was described as always smiling, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was described kana mazahan fil bayt. He was always joking around at home. Like if you think about someone is a baker, they're always breaking bread. Like, okay, their identity is this thing 24/7 basically. That was his identity with his family at home. So he wouldn't just smile, he would bring smiles to those around him, especially at home. So he was a joy to be around. He was someone may be going through a rough patch in life. They may be having a down day, and then they go and they spend some time with the Prophet, and they felt different to be in his presence, to be in his company. One specific contemporary example that comes to mind, God bless him, a friend of mine unfortunately got into a bad car accident a few months ago. And when I found out and I was asking him about it, his car was T-boned on the driver's side,
Mhm.
and he was really shaken up. And I don't know if he had a concussion or like thankfully there weren't any broken bones, but he did go into the hospital, I think to the ER just for a checkup, just to make sure. And when he was describing it to me afterwards, he said, you know, I'm thankful that I already dropped my kids off at school 10 minutes before. Because if they were in the car, it hit on the driver's side, but behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And his kids are fairly young. You know, he has three kids under 10. So, yes, as difficult as that is, nobody wants to go through that. But there was this silver lining of, Alhamdulillah, I'm actually thankful
Mm-hmm.
that my kids are okay, that all of them are okay, that they were not in the car at all. It's not like they were in the car and then they weren't injured, because there can be the psychological trauma of the fear of in the future getting hit by another car potentially, and that worry, that anxiety. So subhanallah, as difficult as it, and alhamdulillah, now you know he's doing okay. He's back to normal, and things are, you know, are going okay. The concern wasn't even regarding the car, even though that's valid and yes, there's insurance and what have you. My kids are okay. So that like this is what Iman does. When a person has these lenses of Iman, of faith, then the way the Prophet described it, that the affair of the believer is incredible. It's amazing. It's ajib. Something good happens, then they're thankful. It's good for them. If something challenging happens, then they're resilient and it ends up being good for them. And this is only the case for someone with faith. SubhanAllah. I mean, there are other light bulbs that went off, but I feel like I've just been, you know, talking too much.
No, not at all. I'm learning. I'm absorbing. It all comes full circle, which is
Yeah.
so beautiful, subhanAllah. And like these are the toolkits, and I know you're going to be speaking to Dr. Tariq as well on the show here in the webinar, and he'll speak to it as well. But our goal with him on our team, and we're so blessed to have him as a partner and as a creator and a religious advisor, is we want to give people the tool set, right? Like, how do we be like that person who was like, subhanAllah, the first thing that came to his mind is, subhanAllah, my kids are not in the car, right? Not could list a million things that go wrong and how it's deterred his day, and then he had to go to the ER, and all, maybe he didn't get time spent with his kids because he had the ER. There's so many other things he could have said, but he chose to focus on that. And how can we all come together, and how can we give you the tools so that when you are faced with trials, and life will always be faced with different types of trials, how can you keep your iman strong, and how can you have the tools to do so? So inshallah, that's the journey that we're on, and we hope people join us. And I appreciate also you bringing it to your students. If you don't mind sharing how that experience has been by bringing it to your classes as well.
Yeah. So thank you again to yourself and Noor Meditation for partnering with Rida. Aside from working with Ihsan, I also work with Rida. Rida is an acronym, Refugee Enrichment and Development Association. It's based here in Sacramento. And Rida offers a variety of services to help those who are refugees. My niche within the organization is working with the refugee youth. And we've showed them the app and told them about it. And what's, I think, what what piques their interest is this is something that's being done by Muslims. This is something that is catering specifically to Muslims. This is something that uses terminology that I'm familiar with. This is using, you know, a phrase, whether Subhanallah or Alhamdulillah or talking about Salah, and it's subtle, but also not so subtle. That there's a certain pride and confidence in the Muslim identity through this type of app, through this type of tool. Because when you plug into it, when you connect with any of the meditations, you're hearing someone talk about Islam confidently. You're hearing someone talk about this idea of meditation, mindfulness in connection with Islam. And I mean, the two weave together seamlessly. I mean, they go hand in hand. If you look at what what meditation is, what mindfulness is, if we just lean into that term mindfulness. Taqwa is God consciousness. Taqwa is to be mindful of Allah. That mindfulness of Allah, that taqwa of Allah, should, in theory, impact every micro decision that a person makes day and night. If I'm ordering food at a restaurant, how am I communicating with the person taking my order? Am I smiling like the Prophet did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And then let's say they bring out, I don't know, brown rice with the meal instead of white rice. How do I respond? It doesn't mean that you can't raise your hand and, politely call them over and ask them, hey, excuse me, I requested this, but I got this. Can I please ask for it to be substituted? Making that request is fine, but how is that request made? It sounds so mundane,
Mm-hmm.
but that's where you find a person's real connection with Allah. How do they navigate the mundane? So the fact that there's this type of tool, Noor meditation, where anyone can access it, in this case at Rida, especially for the refugee youth to hear these ideas being mentioned, and the person is speaking in perfect English, and this person is talking about being mindful in prayer. And I know some of them have the visuals as well. So it's, may Allah bless the effort. This is the type of I think really meaningful gem for someone to really invest in terms of the time, the effort, the resources, the money, etc. Uh, for this to be someone's sadaqah jariyah, for it to be this incredible uh, tool of benefit for people, for someone to leave it behind, and then how many people benefit from it now, and then hopefully also into the future. And thank you for, I know there are different times when, I've mentioned an idea or maybe like a small request, or what if there was background, this background noise or that one, and what should the level of the volume be? So the fact that I want to mention this, because if anyone is using the app and if there are ideas, if there are creative
Please
ideas,
bring
to
them to me.
mention them,
Yeah.
and the fact that they're received with grace and with understanding is actually a really positive sign. It's really appreciated, and it's a sign that it's going to continuously grow more and more, inshallah. Uh,
Jazakallah. Yes, we are so open to it. And I appreciate you feeling comfortable enough to share it with me because we want to help cater to our users. So if there's something that you think is missing or can be done better, you just follow us on Noor_meditation on Instagram. If you direct message me, that's me. I'm behind all of those messages. So let me know. I would love to hear it and gather that feedback. And you mentioned something beautiful. You just said, like, you were talking about the mundane. And our
mm,
goal at Neuro Meditation is to bring beauty to the mundane, right?
mm,
So you're waking up, and like when you mentioned gratitude, so I'll tie back, is one of the practices that we suggest through our app is the moment you wake up and your feet touch the ground, just think of one thing you're grateful for, one thing,
mm,
and we're connecting it to something that you're going to be doing every single day, right? You are lying down. It's on a bed, maybe on a couch, you fell asleep, wherever it is. Eventually, your feet need to come touch the ground when you wake up. If you
mm,
can connect that act of your feet touching the ground in the morning, you've already set yourself up that in the morning you've started with gratitude.
mm,
And then we're going to have sessions to help people while they're brushing their teeth, right?
mm,
And opportunity to be grateful for the teeth that we have, the toothbrush and the bristles, and to actually experience it going against our teeth and allowing this, because our dentists have said like 2 minutes is like the ideal time that you're brushing your teeth. Why can't we do thicker during these 2 minutes and actually be reflective during these 2 minutes? We already have to do it. So we
mm,
might as well make it a great experience, right? You're getting your coffee ready in the morning or your tea, whatever your preference is, seeing the water boil and it's bubbling, right? Before you even drink it, having that there and seeing the steam in that cup and just the gratitude of, wow, I have this, like I'm gifted this cup for today, right? It may not be there, it could break, but it's there for you and it's holding a contents within it. And now that's going to enter your body. You're going to feel a relief. You're going to feel the warmth. all of these things, but which, we're busy and we rush and we drink it and then it's done. Like, do we even have an opportunity to experience it and be grateful? Like you mentioned, that gratitude. So inshallah, we're going to be bringing, there's lots of multiple series that are coming, but that's a big one, is really bringing the beauty with it to the mundane, so that most of our lives, most of our day, if you really think about it, like a large percent is just doing the mundane. And if we can be grateful during that, we are grateful for a large chunk of our day already, automatically, inshallah.
Yeah. And I really like the idea of this idea of atomic habits, right? You
Yes,
already
absolutely.
have
Small little habits. Yes,
this small thing. You're putting your feet on the floor after you wake up. You're doing it anyways.
yes,
So connect this new idea, if someone's not doing it already, this new practice, to something that you're already doing. So it's not in isolation, it's not in a vacuum. Uh,
absolutely.
it's in connection with something you're going to do anyways. Your feet touching the floor, brushing your teeth, um,
Your
uh,
breakfast, your coffee, whatever your choice, the
coffee, your tea,
beverage.
the
Yeah.
water boiling, the mug that you poured in, if whatever the drink is, okay, where did this come from? How did it get here? How was it sourced? These things, they don't come from a supermarket. They
Yeah.
come from whichever part of the world, and people took the time to, if it's coffee, right? It does, like, coffee doesn't grow on shelves in in the supermarket, whichever part of the world. Wow. So what's interesting is we can make dua for those people. Ya Allah, bless those who put in any time and effort for growing this coffee. Just like they played a part in this coffee coming to me, please send them blessings in return. So, and it's interesting, even when and you find the Prophet being an absolute master of turning the mundane into meaning.
Yes.
If you get a new if you when you look in the mirror, say Alhamdulillah, oh Allah, make my character beautiful like you've made my figure beautiful. And what's interesting is I had a really good discussion with a bunch of youth a couple years ago on this. Just this dua, just this dhikr, the Prophet is teaching people to see themselves as beautiful, regardless of how they look, regardless of what the pressure is from mainstream media and whatever. The Prophet is teaching us, from him to us, when you look in the mirror, whatever you see, say Alhamdulillah. The Prophet wants us to see ourselves how he would see us,
Oh, wow.
how Allah sees us. When the Prophet, like, if we were to meet him in person, what is he going to be mainly concerned with? How's the character of this person?
Mhm.
Like, that's what he's going to see as much more of a priority, as opposed to a person's height or a person's skin tone or whatever. So the Prophet is teaching us this is rahmah. He was sent as mercy to all of creation. When you look in the mirror, to say Alhamdulillah, gratitude.
Mhm.
So I can't see my reflection in the mirror without the eyes that Allah gave me in the first place, and the fact that Allah has, uh, proportioned the human body with symmetry. And I mean, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, that God is the one who fashioned the mold of the human being. So whatever we see in the mirror, let me thank Allah and let me ask Allah to make, because what the Prophet is teaching us is whatever you see in the mirror is automatically physically beautiful somehow. So that what the Prophet is teaching us is that's a given, but how's your character?
Mhm.
SubhanAllah. So now looking in the mirror is not just this mundane when brushing your teeth, when
Absolutely.
whatever it is. Uh it's so
SubhanAllah, yes.
have all these different dhikrs. Go ahead.
I may steal that from you. Bring the meaning into the mundane.
Mm.
I'll
Yeah,
give you a shout out for
no,
that.
no, no.
Yeah.
Take it and
Yeah. I like that. I really, really like that. SubhanAllah.
SubhanAllah. I don't want to take too much of your time before
No,
we.
no, this is great. I think I'm going forever. This
Jazakallah
is
khair. May Allah
I've
bless
learned
you
so much
and
from
bless
you.
your husband for the parental support of
Yes. You
watching.
mentioned that. You mentioned that when we were coordinating this, and I thought that was beautiful because you said you basically were making a dua for him, because for me to be here, he needs to be able to help take care of our daughter right now, and that's what he's currently doing. And subhanallah, like look at that. Of look, it's like a team effort. It all comes full circle. And like if we could just enjoy those moments and really express that gratitude,
Mhm.
I just feel like every day can be just so much better and we can experience it so much and then we can feel a lot more connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the ultimate goal.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Jazakallah khair again for the time. May Allah bless you and your husband and your
Jazakallah.
daughter. May Allah protect your family and keep
Ameen,
all of
ameen,
you under His watchful and graceful gaze always in this life and the next, inshallah.
inshallah.
Any last, you know, comments or thoughts or anything that you want to plug specifically before we go ahead and wrap up?
No, just if you're interested and you find that beneficial, our website's www.noormeditation.com. We're available on both the App Store and the Google Play Store. So please give us a download. There's audios that are free, and if you're not ready for meditation, we also have free mini courses. So I don't know if you got a chance, but Dr. Tharek has led some really great mini courses, and one of my especially favorite is called Controlling Your Anger, and it's like really short and he'll give you a little bit of like a task to do. So like session one is just write down everything that makes you angry, and it may feel uncomfortable but no one's going to see it, and it really allows you to reflect and think, and then he builds on that as the course unfolds. So we're really trying to help the busy person, the busy Muslim that has lots to do. So short and sweet sessions, 5 minutes or less, and like we said, let's bring the meaning into the mundane, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you for the time. Thank you for everything.
My absolute pleasure.
Meditation app and make it a means of benefit for many years to come
Ameen.
from you, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Again, we'll go ahead and wrap up. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان في خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Alaikum salam.